All right, friends. Today we're going to learn about the impact of climate change on Earth's ocean. And we're going to use the example of sharks because they're living through this climate change and they're a prime example of how it affects all the creatures in the ocean. So you may have all seen the movie starring the massive great white who is coming to haunt and take out a surfer. It's pretty unrealistic. That's why we continue to travel to blue oceans and swim in the same waters as these creatures during vacations. Everyone told us that the sharks don't come that close. Well, it's time to reevaluate our decisions and beliefs, not because sharks want to come after humans, but sooner than later, all sharks will be headed to the shores thanks to climate change. So, the biggest impact is the acidic in the oceans. So, acidic oceans can affect sharks' physiology and even their survival. The Earth has seen rapid increased carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. Oceans absorb this carbon dioxide, causing seawater to acidify. Ocean's acidification may cause many coral reefs to dissolve. This means that it's affecting all of the fish, all of the coral, everything in the ocean, and especially our sharks, which will eventually lead them to scavenge for a new home and even new food. So let's learn more about what we can do to help the ocean and these sharks.
Climate change is something that affects all of our lives, whether we're a student, a teacher, or a scientist. Speaking of scientists, I have a guest here with me today that can tell us a lot more about climate change, Josh Willis. Now, you're an oceanographer here at JPL, correct?
Well, I'm an oceanographer, but I study sea level rise and global warming and really how the ocean fits into that whole global warming picture. Global warming is happening because people are emitting billions of tons of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Now, when they get there, these greenhouse gases cause extra heat to be trapped on the Earth. So, heat that would have otherwise been radiated back out into space is now sticking around and warming up our planet.
Now, all that heat is trapped in our atmosphere, but is it also affecting the oceans?
It turns out that 80 to 90% of the heat from global warming is actually going into the oceans. So the oceans are really the big Earth heat bucket. That's where all the heat winds up going. It turns out that the oceans can absorb 1,000 times the amount of heat as the atmosphere without really changing their temperature all that much. And the reason is because of something called heat capacity.
Do you have an example that could maybe explain heat capacity?
Let's imagine that this balloon represents the whole Earth's atmosphere. So now my candle, my little lighter here represents the sun. So let's add some heat to it and see what happens.
Now, don't try this at home without adult supervision and proper safety equipment. Whoa. So, obviously, the heat capacity of air is very low because it didn't absorb any heat at all.
Well, that's right. Almost as soon as we put the candle to the balloon, it exploded. And the reason is because since the air inside the balloon couldn't really absorb the heat that fast, all the heat went toward melting the rubber. As soon as the rubber melted, the balloon explodes.
Ah, okay, cool. Now, that's a good demonstration of the heat capacity of air. How about the heat capacity of water or the oceans?
Yeah, let's do the oceans. How about a water balloon, Steve?
Sounds great.
All right. All right, Steve, so this balloon filled with water represents the oceans, and my lighter here represents the sun. Let's put some heat on it and see what happens.
Wow. Obviously, it's absorbing a great deal of heat.
Right, so you feeling the heat there, Steve?
I am.
All right, but the balloon really isn't, because it turns out that the water can absorb so much heat that it takes the heat away from the skin of the balloon before the rubber can melt, so the balloon doesn't pop.
Excellent example. So the water has a tremendous ability to absorb heat, and if that's an analog for our oceans, that means our oceans are absorbing a lot of heat as well.
That's right, they sure are, Steve.
All right, well, global warming sounds like quite a problem. What can we do about it?
Well, the first thing we need to do, Steve, is really just understand the problem. Scientists all around the globe, including NASA scientists and here at JPL, we study data from satellites that measure the oceans and the atmosphere, and these tell us about how global warming proceeds and hopefully give us an idea of what the future is going to look like.
It sounds like a pretty serious problem. What is it we can do?
Everything that we do almost uses some kind of energy, and most of it's produced by burning fossil fuels, which release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We could turn off the lights when we leave the room, maybe power down that computer every once in a while and go outside, take a bike ride instead of getting in your car.
Well, thanks, Josh, for coming in and talking to us today about climate change. We really appreciate your expertise.
You bet, Steve. My pleasure.
All right, thanks much.
All right. So, what are the three main things that we as students can do to assist climate change and decrease the acidic levels in the ocean one person at a time? We can conserve water. That means turning off the water while we're brushing our teeth or taking shorter showers. We can take a bike ride rather than the car. If we wanted to go to an ice cream shop down the road, we could ride our bike if it's nice out. And we can turn off our electronics and lights when we are not using them. All right, guys, I hope you have a good rest of your day and you enjoyed this lesson.